Donald Trump has chimed in and said this is the kiss of death for Ron DeSantis. And this, you know, look, Ashley St. Clair. Look, let me slow down. You know how we have these really awesome quotes from the founding fathers, and you'll like look in a book and you'll be like reading about some crazy dude in the 16th century, and he'll say something like, the king hereby declareth through divine providence means as much, declarations of divine providence mean as much to me as the manure of a horse. And you're like, wow, like, look how bold. Now it's like, that was because when they wrote things down, it was rare. They talked a lot of smack, but they rarely wrote things down. So when they did, they really thought them through. Now you're going to have quotes from people in the history books that just like, I got some quotes for you, man. Like if you go through my Twitter and pull up some of the quotes, people are going to be like, what? Like, you know, like posting pictures, like someone's going to put, like I posted a picture of a hairless rabbit once for no reason.
Yeah.
And it's like, you couldn't imagine the founding fathers doing, I mean, you could, they would be silly sometimes. Like Ben Franklin was known to be, to have a sense of humor, but so now we're looking at the story about Ron DeSantis and his high heels. Of course, he is absolutely, I think it's proven at this point, beyond a reasonable doubt, he's wearing high heels.
He's been convicted in shoe court?
In public court. Well, because there's that video where he's walking and it you know, his foot doesn't exist.
It folds.
It folds straight in.
I saw that interview. He says it was off the rack shoes.
Point, yes. And who says that? My point is this. The history books are going to say, what, I don't know what date it was, but like, you know, in October of 2023, Ashley St. Clair posted a video making fun of the Ron DeSantis campaign and putting on thigh-high cowboy boots, which generated a response from Ron DeSantis' PR team. This led to a larger conversation on the Timcast podcast. Finally, a statement from the president, from the front runner for the Republican Party, on his rival wearing high-heeled boots. This is what the history books are going to say.
We live in such an unserious time. It's unbelievable.
It is unserious in a sense,
like,
yeah, but
it feels like a sitcom episode where like he's going around and they're like, "You're wearing high heels." Like they're not heels, they're lifts, and he has to keep correcting people.
It's a dystopian dark comedy, though. Right?
I'm okay with it though.
Why didn't they stuff his boots? Like, look at this picture. Like, guys, take some toilet paper.
They're even too long. Not only are they too high, they're too long. What is this? So they just pick them up at a hand.
They're too long because his foot's pulled back on a lump.
Oh, I see.
On a lift.
Yeah.
So, and then a lot of people are pointing out when he said they're off the rack Lucchese boots, people are like, who says off the rack?
No.
He also said he hadn't seen the he's like, oh, I haven't seen this. I'm like, you've seen this, bro.
But anyway, the point is Donald Trump chiming in. And do we have the? I think the post-millennial had. Let me pull up the post-millennials version because I think they actually have the statement from Donald Trump. I guess the Daily Beast didn't have the statement. They just mentioned that Donald Trump chimed in. I don't know, whatever. Let me see. I think what do we got? Here we go. Trump campaign responds to Bootgate, calls it the kiss of death.
Kellen is claiming Bootgate is his.
Bootgate?
Kellen is claiming that that's his term, that he came up with
Kellen
Bootgate.
claims a lot of things.
A scathing new article from Politico about Ron DeSanctimonious' high-heeled shoes comes on the heels of an embarrassing interview on the Patrick Bet-David show that led to Bootgate trending on X. When asked directly about why his boots look like stilts, DeSantis offered up the implausible explanation that he just wears off-the-rack Lucchese boots, doing major brand damage to a great American footwear company.
Oh, yeah. It's some brand damage, all right.
This is why Trump wins against DeSantis, at least, because that's the kind of funny statement, like a side joke where it's like you accuse DeSantis of besmirching the good name of Lucchese. He says, if there's any enterprising journalist willing to contact the Lucchese press team for their thoughts on DeSantis, they are reachable here. And then he links to it. In another moment of insanity, Ron offered up the laughable claim that he's 5'11". Instead of telling the truth and just being comfortable in his own skin, he resorts to borderline psychotic behavior by lying to the American people. Is that what this country wants in a president? Okay, blah, blah, blah. This is not from, it's Stephen Chung, Trump's spokesperson, but I just want to say, I think Ron DeSantis is the dumbest politician I've seen in my life. The dumbest. Yeah. Look, policy-wise, did some good stuff. I'm now going to chalk it up to the Florida state legislature. A large body of individuals pushed forth a bunch of ideas, and Ron said, okay, sounds good. And he's getting all the credit for it. Ron has got to be the dumbest guy in politics, because he's had every opportunity after every single blunder and failure. He won't fire these guys. He won't fire his PR team. It's almost like he's doing it on purpose. Maybe Ron's the smartest guy in politics, and I can't understand why it is he would destroy himself in this way, or he's just really, really dumb.
He's dumb, but let's talk about how unfortunate it is that our political discourse has, and I don't want to come off as the pedant and the former professor, et cetera, but look at the depth to which our discourse has sunk. If we can't win in the realm of ideas, we have to resort to boots and Bootgate.
Bootgate. It was look. It's Halloween. This was the trending story this morning when I wake up. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's got like 100,000 tweets. Bootgate, Boots, Trump.
It's accessible.
And I'm like,
it's fun.
It's accessible to everyone.
It's fun.
It is kind of what has turned politics into a bit of a spectator team sport, which I admit that is it necessarily the greatest thing for America as a whole? No, but I have a lot lot of fun with it.
It's fun.
Doesn't bother me.
It's fun. I wish it was like a cartoon instead of reality. But
I was recently Glenn Greenwald was on Jordan Peterson's podcast, and one of the things that they were talking about was people today with the kind of the fact that religion became less important in communities and less important to Americans. People replaced religion with essentially what boils down to state worship. It's not quite that, but that's essentially the effect. And I think that's probably the biggest problem that we have in the U.S. Now, I'm an agnostic. I don't particularly have a religion that I'm more more likely to be supportive of or whatever. But I don't think that we have the option to not have a religion. There's a lot of people that get it in their head that humans should just evolve past religion, and they just don't have any idea that they don't have any idea how evolution works, if that's what they think, because it takes an outside force for there to be evolution. Religion is ubiquitous across humanity, no matter what society you look at. Every society, no matter how far they are apart in distance or in time, every society that has been created by human beings has had some kind of religion with it. Religion is as inseparable from the human experience and from human psychology as I think as humor or as any other interpersonal relationship. It's probably a psychological phenomenon built to deal with having the motivation to keep us alive, and at the same time
connect.
At the same time dealing with the fact that we are finite and going to die.
Real quick, I was thinking a lot about this earlier, and I was thinking about Kurt Cobain. And I was thinking about, who was I thinking about? Just a bunch of musicians who've killed themselves. And I was just like, how is it that someone like Kurt Cobain, okay, maybe it's not a good example because there's conspiracy theories around whether or not he actually killed himself, but there are many rock stars who, you know what I was thinking of? I was thinking of Matthew Perry. And he's found underwater in his hot tub, drowning, cardiac arrest, depends on the reports. And a lot of people said, look, man, this is a guy who did a lot of drugs in his day and was like pretty messed up and depressed for a while, right? Is that just... Yeah,
and also hot tub with any heart condition is a no-go. Not a good idea.
So I started thinking this, like, how could you be on the show Friends, the biggest show, and like still one of the biggest shows ever, making, how much were they making per episode? It was like $1 million.
More than that.
Several $1 million. And then resort to doing drugs. I'm like, how do you...
That's the norm.
But I think I get it. How come Elon Musk is the world's richest man and is not doing drugs and not drinking?
Purpose.
And exactly. So for if you're a regular dude and you're funny, and then someone says, would you like to be funny in my show? And you're like, sure. And every day you struggle. Every day you're trying to figure out how to pay the bills. Every day you're waking up figuring out how you're going to pay your rent. And then one day someone says, make this joke on TV. You do, boom, biggest show in the world. All of a sudden, you have no struggle. All of a sudden, you are loaded with cash. You have nothing to do. You don't have to worry for anything. And you've never had a strong purpose. Your purpose has always been to survive, but now you don't have to. Whereas Elon Musk's purpose is advance humanity in the ways he wants to. So what's missing, I believe, and it just roots down to one simple thing for many people, religion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the point was made that statism has become a religion, and this was the case.
And identity politics.
And that's how they fight the depression.
Yeah.
Right.
You've got these young women that are chock full of crazy pills. You know what the most irritating thing to me is? When I hear like some millennial woman be like, he needs a Xanax, or like, I take a Xanax. Like, no, stop doing these things. Well, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do. Your doctor prescribes it. You do what your doctor says. But I'm just like, it's insane that people are like, well, better take a mood stabilizer.
Or they tell everybody else to get therapy, not realizing that it's not necessarily for everybody. We've medicalized a lot of the world today. To your point with actors, I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that they have a very dangerous combination of both insanely high egos and extremely sensitive personalities, because the profession as a whole requires you to be very much vulnerable all the time, which leads to heavy drug use for a lot of them. And I think that's true of a lot of what's going on in American culture right now. There's a lot of depression, there's a lot of sadness, and people, it could be that they're not filling it with religion like they did in the past, and the people that are filling it with what we would call now identity politics or the state as a religion are being fed an ideological means of hatred.
Yeah, the state's a failed religion. Statism is a failed religion. It will not sustain you.
Like if we're talking about Marxists telling you, who have been told you've been raised to hate your country, you've been raised to hate people that see the world differently than you, while being told that they're oppressing you, even though that dude's as poor, that dude is as poor and as miserable as you are. How is that not a world of depression and sadness for people?
And it gives you a sense of moral superiority,
which is the most dangerous part.
It allows you to oppress people, to act violently. The whole punch a Nazi thing. It's like as soon as the argument was it's acceptable to punch a Nazi, everybody became a Nazi because it was just whoever I want to punch is a Nazi. That's the excuse du jour. So it gives people the excuse to behave terribly, to behave with aggression and malice towards other people, and feel like they are doing the morally correct thing. And that's, I forget who it was, but someone quoted that's the most delicious of psychological treats, to be able to abuse someone and feel like you're doing it as a good thing. And if you look at the jihadis, the Islamic terrorists, that's what they all do. They all believe that they are in the right, and if they beat the crap out of an infidel, God wanted them to, so that was a moral thing. Throwing gay people off a building, it doesn't matter because God wanted it. You can be as atrocious to people that don't believe in your religion as you want because God has said it. And it's the same type of attitude from the Marxists and the far left when they're saying, oh, well, beat the Nazis up.
Another thing about wokeness as a religion, it's unlike Christianity, there's no redemption under wokeness, right? So if you're white and male, you're damned for eternity. There's no way out. And going back to your point about religion, anthropologists have suggested that why religion is so durable is because it actually came at the same time as civilization. As we got into creation and creativity, innovation, etc., it sprouted at the exact same moment. So it's no surprise that it's so recalcitrant for some, or otherwise you might say it's very it's a kind of permanent part of the human life. And I'm agnostic as well, but imagine the hubris of like just now in this time period feeling like you found the answer that every generation in the past didn't need. Like the atheist movement in the early 2010s probably did more damage to America than
it's exhausting.
I do love these like 18-year-old leftists who think they've discovered universal truth that no one else has ever thought of, and like they just have not read any philosophers.
Yeah, I was 18 before once too.
I think a lot of it is like in the age of the internet, like the ease of access to information, and this is something that I think we're all, at least somebody like me, is guilty of as well, and I have to like put myself in check. Like knowing something isn't the same thing as understanding it. Like, and you have access to a lot of information, and then you have people believing that they know better than somebody who's practical in their field, and that's just not the way the world works, right? Yeah, you have to actually live things and experience things to have real knowledge. It isn't something you can impart through just information per se. Yeah. I don't know. It's all of it is very like that is the most depressing. Like out of all the conversations we just had, that might be the most depressing. Like the war and everything, but it's like everything that's going on. I find like what's gone on in the last, because it's like it's been so quick in the last 12 to 15 years. The shift in American values in the last 15 years has been so abrupt.
But why is that shift happening? Because millennials are entering the workforce. So it was a crazy moment for me when I used to play shows as a teenager. I'd go to a cafe and I'd play an open mic, and then one day I turned 21. And when I used to play shows as a teenager, everyone at the shows was always between the ages of like 16 and 20. Because as soon as you turn 21, you're at the bars. So I turned 21 and I'm like, I'm going to find an open mic. And I'm like, oh, here's one. I'm like, I'd go to openmic.com. And I'm like, oh, it's at a bar. I show up, everyone's 40. And I was like, whoa, this is kind of weird. Like, I've never experienced this. All of a sudden, it was like the training wheels come off and welcome to the real world. The entire bar is full of people of all different, there's like several decades here of different values, different worldviews. I had now at that point entered this adult space for the first time, playing shows with people with tremendous, way more experience, way more opinions, more knowledge, more wisdom. Some stupid people, don't get me wrong. And so what happens is we're like, how is this country changing? It's not that people are becoming woke. It's that young people were indoctrinated to be woke, and now they're old enough to have an influence in the marketplace. In politics.
But there's a white pill I'd like to drop on all this. Is I do think there's going to be a renaissance of liberty-minded people. It's going to come out of this movement because, as you pointed out, it's a path to destruction, destitution, economically, socially. It leads to decadence and there's going to be a renaissance of liberty-minded people coming out of this woke contagion.
I hope that's true, but I'm going to be honest. Like when the number one place where I see this topic is when people talk about the housing market, when they talk about the price of housing, how so many young people are being your parents say go to college. You're like, oh, you went to college in a part-time job, blah blah blah. We see these very very doomer descriptions that are accurate. They're accurate to the world we're living in right now. But I don't think that creates people who want free markets because they've been poisoned to believe that the free market is a
yeah. But I think we're gonna
create communists and it's gonna create socialists.
Yeah, but they're gonna experience the misery that brings, and
we're all gonna experience.
Yeah, we all are,
and then we're gonna have to fight our way out.
Yeah, we have to fight our way out.
I think we get that before we get back to living.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be San Francisco times 10 everywhere.
No, it's depressing.
Unless
I'm not convinced that it gets to a communist Soviet style.
Not exactly.
Country. No, I think we may already be out of the tailspin and starting to pull back. If you look at Bud Light sponsoring UFC, we all kind of groaned when they did, but now you see Sean Strickland being like, "Oh yeah, let's see how Bud Light responds to this dude getting up on stage with a Bud Light in hand, saying a whole bunch of anti-woke and offensive things to make the point." Bud Light is forced to back him now and back his speech. And his speech is not favorable towards trans people.
Even if the tide is turning, and you might be right about the tide turning, even if it is, this is something that is going to take a while to get out of the schools because there are people that are going to fight like hell. And there's also industry that's already built in. You've got people with tenure that aren't going to want to give up their jobs. You've got niche
who cares about
industries.
Schools?
As long as they're in schools and they're teaching kids these things, kids are going to be coming out of schools. But you have 20 years of graduating classes that believe this crap.
What I'm saying is two things. First, we've part of the movement has already been to criticize schools in general for everything they are. Not just to be like, oh, there's wokeness in schools. No, it's outright like schools are bad. Homeschool your kids.
Exactly.
But then also, if you go on Twitter, if you go on X, if you go on Instagram, you go on these platforms, and you have the wrong opinion, you're made fun of, you don't get followers. If the shift among prominent popular people and celebrities is against the wokeness, now especially because of Israel, these young, look, I've told this story before, when I went to VidCon in like 2016, and as I'm walking in, I see these group of kids, probably 13 years old, and one kid goes, "You have 80 followers? How do you have 80 followers? Wow." And like these little kids are growing up in a world where follower count matters, and that's going to warp their brains in crazy ways. But guess what? If you're in high school and you're like, I want 1 million followers, and then you see all the celebrities are getting behind Israel and opposing the left,
right?
And now you get Amy Schumer retweeting or posting on Instagram campus reform, which is a more right-leaning outlet. Now these young people are like, I want 1 million followers.
Yeah.
I want to be a celebrity, and they're going to go in this direction.
That's right. I think I've said this in my book, Great Reset and the Struggle for Liberty. We need defection from the elites. We're always going to have elites. There's a natural elites, not just those that are propped up by the state and other artificial measures, but we need defectors. And, perhaps Elon Musk is one. We need other defectors from the elite.
Trump.
And yes, you could be right. And so give people somebody to, we need public voices that come out against all this. And that will be a big part of this. And I hope to make my campaign part of that. And that is to, be publicly stating these things, undoing the mind virus.
Is there like a primary for the Libertarian Party?
There is a primary.
When is it?
It's ongoing now.
It's ongoing now?
Oh, yeah. It goes, we have a convention in May. And that convention, that's where the candidate is chosen by delegates.
Delegates?
Yes, it's not an open voting system. It's a delegate selection system.
That doesn't sound very libertarian.
I know. That what you mean to say is that doesn't sound democratic, but libertarianism and democracy are kind of, there's a tension there. Let's be real about that.
Yes.
Yeah, because actually, democracy in its extremes, it infringes property rights.
100%.
Okay, so 3 out of 4 say your money is mine. There you go. You can rob that guy. So,
but I do kind of feel like
system.
But I do kind of feel like, just start from the ground. If you're a libertarian, the question is, why does anyone have authority over me?
Right? Good question.
And so
nobody does. As libertarians, we don't think we should have authority over there. So why am I running for office? Is that where you're going?
No. Why is it a delegate-based system that's determining who gets to be the nominee? Why does the party have the authority over my choice in who should be the nominee? Who should be? I mean, to be fair, it's because the party is giving them the backing, basically.
Yes, that's right.
So the party is choosing.
Right. At least it's honest about it. Look at the Democratic Party, what they're going to do. Right? What they were going to do to Kennedy, for example, and they made it very clear. It didn't matter how many votes he got; they were going to give it to Biden or whoever.
I hope they give it to Biden.
Whoever they stand up.
Biden needs to be the nominee. I don't think he will be, though.
Whoever they stand up, yeah. I mean, if they can stand him up, long enough to.
Gavin Newsom met with Xi Jinping because he knows. He sees the writing on the wall, same as everybody else. It's not going to be Biden.
Feels like Gavin Newsom. Like the more that I see about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of play out there.
Even when you see conservative women being like, "I hate his guts, but the guy's handsome," you're just like, "Man, this is like he definitely has like an evil quality about him."
Take a look around Los Angeles. Take a look around San Francisco. Look at the outrageous destitution and horror that this guy's policies have brought to this this state.
We've talked about how the way to remove Joe Biden is like the perfect scenario for the deep state is Joe Biden suffers some kind of medical issue. Gavin Newsom runs on. Biden's at a rally in California and then grips his chest, and then Gavin Newsom runs out, performs CPR, saves the life of the president. Kamala Harris steps in as acting president, but says she does not want to start a campaign this late in the season. She wants to do her duty to this country. Gavin Newsom then says, I will do it. Goes on the press tour. But what if it's just something crazy like Joe Biden sacrifices himself in some really crazy way, like bringing peace to the Middle East or whatever. He personally goes there and like walks on the battlefield and holds up his hands, and then they're like, no, Joe. And then he goes down in history as like the savior. That's how they get rid of him.
Yeah, but I'd be very surprised about that.
He's going to eat an ice cream cone too fast and die of a brain freeze.
Sniffing someone's hair by the edge of a mountain and he just falls.
Right now, this guy's just a prop. I mean, he's a ventriloquist dummy. There's nothing there.
Also, to your point, Phil, to what you were saying,
but I think it's fair to say more of like, I don't know if ventriloquist dummy is the right phrase, because he's also sort of this vacuous pit for money laundering.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, that's true.
Maybe,
he has a kind of a money pocket in his puppetry.
Maybe he's a pneumatic banking tube, where the government can put the money and then send it.
Yeah, that's true.
To what you were saying, Phil, also about you were mentioning the schools, but also the companies, the corporations where all of these policies have been enacted and are now enshrined. It's going to take an inordinate amount of time to get that removed from their, what they call mission statements or their company values, which is, I still laugh, maybe more funny than anything else is the idea that a corporation has like a mission statement or has values. But you've got mid-level employees with hiring capabilities that have been indoctrinated with these views viewpoints who have been shoveled this stuff for the last 2 decades. You're not just going to have to get rid of them. You're going to have to get rid of the people under them.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of conflict between my point and what Tim says. I'm thinking that it's just going to take time to actually get this stuff out. It didn't happen overnight.
No.
It happened quickly because of the internet and stuff, but it didn't happen overnight.
I don't know if it's that it happened quickly. It's that they placed the chess pieces over a long period of time.
I agree with that too.
And then the internet just allowed the game to move faster.
There's something else involved with wokeness. It's not just cultural or ideological. It is actually economic. And they've seized upon this as a means for establishing what I call a woke cartel. And that is to get rid of businesses by virtue of saying, look, if you don't get, Larry Fink of BlackRock, if you don't live up to this ESG, now he's changed the name of it because it's got such a bad name.
Yep.
If you don't live up to this ESG, we're not going to invest capital in you. So this is kind of a cartel scheme on top of all the cultural stuff. Wokeness is kind of like a demarcation device to siphon capital to the right players and get rid of the rest.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.